Acolytes, the depressing state of modern Pokémon, from Scouter V. I will laugh, but I already agree with it. For now, Pokémon, well, cash grab, right now, it is what it is. Sadly, but let's hear what he has to say about it. By the way, I myself played until Ruby and Sapphire.
My dudes, I choose you.
What? What? Oh, now I understand. Yes. Yes. Fair
I
enough.
don't talk about it much here, but like a lot of you guys, I'm a huge fan of Pokemon. No, not whatever this is. I'm talking about the best Pokemon games ever released. Pokemon Yellow, Red, and Blue. I'm just gonna say,
I agree, fair enough, yes.
if you didn't experience the original Pokemon games from 1998 to the early 2000s, at the time that they came out, I feel bad for you, because you missed out on one of the coolest cultural phenomenons in human history, and something newer fans of Pokemon will never understand. I'm sure a lot of you older dudes will know exactly what I'm talking about here, but if you grew up in the 90s, every kid was separated by our favorite franchises. In the 80s, it was Transformers, which was eventually taken over by the Ninja Turtles craze. A few years later, in 1993, came the Power Rangers. And my god, that Yellow Ranger in combination with Tia Carrera from Wayne's World did some serious things in the mind of little innocent V.
もうポケモンの話は誰もこんなことに興味がないでしょう。
いや、一人ぐらいいるかもしれないよ。
キモいなこの変態。
So anyway, shortly after Nintendo drops the N64, they went ahead and released the perfect triple combo. The Pokemon anime, the Pokemon games, and the Pokemon cards. This led to an intense global cultural craze that people called Pokemania. Now look, it's obvious that the games and the anime were marketed to children, and a lot of the older kids were already watching Dragon Ball on TV at the time. So a lot of kids in their teens might have skipped out completely on Pokemon altogether. But if you liked RPGs as much as I did and did not play the original titles, you missed out on some of the best games ever made. I'm not gonna go much into the N64 titles, but Pokemon Stadium was the perfect addition to the handheld games. And
normally I would... The thing is, at those times, this was actually quite legendary. And the potential of the newer games to just be way freaking better, the potential of it was there, but they fucked it up, so...
Personally, I think that Pokemon Snap is one of the best titles in the franchise and one of the best games on the N64. So what made the first generation so good? It doesn't sound that unique. Like most RPGs, you start off with nothing. You get stronger and you beat the final boss. Not to mention, even at the time, the graphics were terrible, which were only made worse by the Game Boy's lack of a backlight for the screen. But if you had Pokemon Stadium, you could play on your TV. I was too poor to get an N64 at the time, so I mostly played the games on the Super Game Boy. What made Pokemon so good was it basically created and popularized a completely untapped genre, capturing and raising monsters to battle. Until Pokemon, most RPGs only had a small party with character customization being limited to armor and magic, and maybe a few skills. We got a few cult classics around that time that let you recruit multiple characters, and they were all bangers. Shining Force 2 had 30 recruitable characters on the Sega Genesis, and on the PlayStation there was Chronocross that had 45, and Suikoden 2 had 117, which was unheard of at the time. Pokemon had a whopping 151 monsters to choose from and build.
This was, by the way, incredible at that time. 150 different Pokemon you can go around, and for those who actually just played it for fun, we had a blast, especially down in the right corner, freaking Mewtwo. This effing legendary Pokemon. Love it.
The team around, and since you have to capture them yourself, this gave kids a personal connection to their own Pokemon, like they were your own friends. The closest thing we had at the time to this were those Tamagotchi things, which came out a few years before. On top of that, the game launched just before the internet started getting more and more mainstream, so learning about evolutions and where to find rare Pokemon was mostly done through word of mouth. I still remember the secret way to get one of the best Pokemon in the game. You had to use a Pokemon move called Surf to get to a hidden area where a truck is. Then you had to use a move called Strength on the truck, which would reveal the rarest Pokemon in the game. Mew,
so much
almost
bullshit.
no other kids knew about it, and it was like a badge of honor to have one. And man, being able to watch the anime while playing the game was awesome.
Who's that Pokemon?
It's Pikachu!
It's
easy.
So after the original games, I played almost every Pokemon game up to X and
Oh,
Y.
fair
It
enough.
started with Gold and Silver, which are great games. But let's be real, they're basically the same game, with just a few extra Pokemon. And this is where the problem started with the franchise. You see, the top 3 popular franchises from Japan are literally Mario, Dragon Ball, and Pokemon. But for some reason, Mario is the only franchise out of all 3 that has been getting proper games that vastly improve and innovate with each title released.
Yep,
I'll make
true.
a Dragon Ball video one day, but the games have been mostly trash since the Nintendo days, with a few bangers every now and then. I had a ton of requests to make a Sparking Zero video last year, but I'll be honest, I'm sick of Dragon Ball Z fighting games, my dudes. I have been playing them since the original PlayStation. I literally imported Final Bout and my favorite game in the franchise, Idai Naru Dragon Ball Densetsu, and I played them on my modded PlayStation as they were region
of
locked.
course,
Not
yes.
too long ago, I tried to play Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, but it was one of the worst RPGs I've ever played. But fans still gave it a good score because it's the only option that we have. Come on, dudes, they got us flying through rings. Unfortunately, just like Dragon Ball, it doesn't matter if Bandai or Game Freak makes their games low quality. This is because fans of these franchises keep buying whatever gets released, regardless of quality. Game Freak.
Oh, yes, yes. And this is a gigantic problem these days. No matter what a company does, it will get... I mean, okay, I overdone it. It's getting better and better. Fair enough. But for F's sake, Nintendo was the holy grail for so long. And I am happy that people start to actually look at it and say, yeah, no, they are effing up all the time. Finally. And by the way, what I think that, or why did Mario actually get really good games? I think because Mario is associated with Nintendo so heavily that if they F Mario up, they're gonna get way more, well, flack than anything else. So Mario has to be on point. Mario has to do good. And that's where they focused. The other things, people will buy it anyway, so...
And Nintendo have basically been releasing the same damn game for the past 30 years, with each title only having minor tweaks, a handful of new Pokemon, and graphics that are still stuck in the PS2 era. It's terrible. Literally, the franchise...
Agree, it is, but it sells. It still sells. And why would you have to evolve if you don't have to? Why would you do something better if people still buy the same thing? Let's FIFA, for example. Yeah.
franchise peaked at the first generation, and it's mostly been downhill since then. I will admit some mechanics have been pretty cool. I thought it was badass when they added secret hideouts. And what do you know? Game Freak removed this feature. But all that aside, I'm gonna say it right now. Pokemon has become one of the worst, if not the worst, gaming franchise out there. How dare you talk about my Pokemon, you fucking Not only has Pokemon become one of the worst gaming franchises, it's full of rabid fanboys that takes any negative discussion about the newer games like it's some personal attack. Come on, dudes, grow up. If we all stuck together and didn't buy this crap, we'd all get better games. The player base being so divided is one of the franchise's biggest issues right now. Currently, there are 4 types of Pokemon fans. First, we have little kids that got the game from their parents. They weren't around for Generation 1. These dudes have started on later titles, and since it's a 30-year-old franchise, a lot of these guys are a bunch of hairy dudes now in their 20s. They will never understand how awesome the first games were. Then there are the casual players, men and women who play each title and enjoy games like Animal Crossing. Most of these players don't care too much about the competitive side of the late game. Then there are the competitive sweatlords, who are mostly interested in building teams, following the meta, and competing in tournaments. And then there's the biggest group, the OGs. People like me who only care about the original first couple of Pokemon games. Some of us may check out some of the mainline games every now and then, but we hate the direction Pokemon has gone in, and we are burnt out on playing the same damn game over and over again. We are the reason why Pokemon Go was such a huge hit at the beginning, and we are one of the main reasons why Palworld exploded in popularity, which made Pokemon look like a joke. For some reason, ever since Pokemon was released, not a single other company other than the makers of Palworld have tried to pass Pokemon in quality and give fans what they want. Believe me, I've tried almost everything from Jade Cocoon on the original PlayStation to Nino.
Jade Cocoon, I love this. And the second part was also good. Ah.
Kuni on the PS4. And while these are good games, it's just not the same. I even resubscribed to World of Warcraft after quitting for years just to try out the pet battles back in the day. And I'm just a hardcore classic Andy. The biggest problem I have is that the first generation of Pokemon were so well designed that everything else just isn't as interesting. Palworld has a ton of well-designed characters, but they copied some of the worst game mechanics from newer Pokemon games that I hate. The first one being having to catch a ton of the same Pokemon to get the strongest version possible because of how personality and hidden values affect max stats at max level. This was added so that Pokemon of the same species can naturally be stronger than others. These are called IVs. Maybe I'm a weirdo, but I can't stand this game mechanic. In the first generation of Pokemon, there was...
I'm gonna be honest, the only people that actually care about this mechanics are people that like to win max or min max, or I don't remember which one, acolytes. And that's fine. I don't care about this mechanic that much. It's just the only thing, like in Palworld, if you had just one of the pairs that was so bad because of the things he got, you just couldn't use them. That was a bit icky, in my opinion. I mean, I also tried to optimize to a certain degree, at least the passives, but you know. I still have to start from a new save because it's been a while for Palworld, and I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, by the way.
Not a personality mechanic at all. There was an IV and EV system, but nobody really knew about it. So we just all caught one of each type of Pokemon and leveled up whatever we liked. This was also my biggest issue with Pokemon Go. I'm sorry, but I don't want to catch 200 Pidgeys and throw them all away just to get the perfect one. It's just an artificial time sink and lazy game design. I'd rather spend that time training them up like Rocky. This is why there's no point in even getting attached to your starting Pokemon anymore, or even naming them, as you just end up throwing them all away in the late game. Because the chance of getting perfect stats in the beginning are almost zero. It looks like they finally fixed this in Scarlet and Violet, as you can just buy items now to get the stats that you want, which is great. But here's the thing.
Oh, that's good. For F's sake. You know what? I would just for F's sake copy the system, the same freaking thing that Skyrim does. Just get your pal or Pokemon or something like, I don't care, let them have all the same stats and then let them repeat the action so they get better in it. As simple as that. And I bet you everybody would be happy about it. Every single one of you acolytes would be happy about it, to just see your little monster grow as I do with my zombie warriors and skeleton warriors and my dragons. They grow and get so big. But yes, this game mechanic would be so much better.
The game looks like garbage, and I'm not interested in the newer Pokemon. They literally just added a flamingo and called it Flamigo. They aren't even trying anymore. Look at this. Keys? Come on. I also just don't want to play as a little boy anymore. Give older players options to play as grown men and women like Palworld. Side note, Nintendo recently removed calling your character a boy and a girl and went with this appearance bullshit instead. I'm tired, boss. Just take a look at all the top Pokemon YouTubers. They're literally all grown men with beards, all playing with 8-year-old avatars. At some point, it's just awkward. I know it's a kid game, but why does Pokemon refuse to grow with its audience and make games for their older fans?
Because you can get way more money out of kids over a longer time by providing them with a way worse product. Wait, you actually don't see this genius little... Sorry about that, acolytes. But yes, you can just sell way more bollocks, way worse quality bollocks to kids. Simple as that.
I tried to stay out of drama with other YouTubers, but the top Pokemon creators all pretend that Palworld doesn't even exist, as it's a controversial topic in the Pokemon community, which I get, but they all also refuse to criticize Pokemon for its shortcomings, which is not helping the franchise grow or sending the correct message to Nintendo.
Scarlet and Violet are the greatest Pokemon games ever made. Not only are they the best, they're so good that you're probably never going to be able to go back and play an old Pokemon game again. My name is WolfGlick, and I am the best Pokemon player of all time.
Fair enough, yes.
You serious?
I also see a lot of people trying to blame everything on Game Freak as Nintendo is just the publisher. But at this point, Nintendo needs to take over Game Freak and get some new talent in there. Comparing Pokemon to Mario or Zelda is a meme at this point. And in my opinion, I think Pokemon is hurting Nintendo's image. But even so, Nintendo has become one of the greediest gaming companies out there, my dudes.
Yep.
And I'll be honest, I'm having a hard time wanting to even support them. Back in the day, the reason they released Pokemon Red and Blue as separate games was so that players would need to trade Pokemon with other kids using a link cable to catch them all. It was
and to make some extra bucks. I half believe it, let's just say it like this. I'm sure both motivations are true.
was a genius idea that helped build a community of kids all working together with their friends to complete their Pokedex. But it's 2025 now, dudes. There hasn't been a reason to do this for years. I don't have any friends. However, they refuse to stop splitting up Pokemon just so that they can make more money. There are literally fans that keep buying both copies just so that they can trade with themselves. If you're doing this, knock it off already. You're part of the problem. Literally all OG fans want is an open world Pokemon game that looks something like Breath of the Wild and has real-time battles and all the original 151 Pokemon. This game would literally make Nintendo billions of dollars, but they refuse to do so because people keep buying this low-quality slop. I don't know how many times I've seen badass looking.
I'm gonna be honest, I wouldn't even buy a new Pokemon game even if it was open world, a good game. Because these days, it just looks too cute to me. Yes, the graphics matter to a certain degree. And a Pokemon game would be, for me personally, not an option. Purely because of the graphics. That's all. That's all. Palworld, on the other hand, is also cutesy, but it has a bit of a brutality behind it. That's why I prefer that.
Fan projects over the years that tried to make the perfect Pokemon open world game, but then they were instantly shut down by Nintendo's lawyers. Nintendo even went after Palworld recently for using similar ball mechanics.
They won.
Come on, Nintendo, doing this shit isn't helping your image. It makes you look like assholes. I mean, come on. Palworld wouldn't even exist if you had just listened to the fans. Look, dudes, I have already accepted that the franchise is not for me anymore years ago. I literally just watch the trailer whenever a new game is announced, notice that the game looks like trash, and I ignore it and move on with my life. Later on this year, Pokemon Legends Z to A or whatever is gonna be released, and I just find it hard to believe that people can watch this trailer and get excited. And with Nintendo raising prices on the Switch too, this game is gonna be $80 to $90. If you're willing to pay that much money for a game that looks like this, maybe Nintendo isn't the problem. Maybe it's you. Peace.
Hey, fair enough. I mean, a lot of wisdom here. Funny enough, and it's just, in the end, yes, this is what I actually think that most of the time, I think it's a 50-50. Because a company will do what players pay for. Simple as that. But also you have companies who actually abuse some mental tricks to actually trick you into buying stuff. So there is always a 50-50 here. But in the end of the day, you can still resist and just not buy shit. Simple as that. And yes, it sounds simpler than it is, but you know, just don't look for excuses, look for a solution, acolytes. And you will be a bit better off. But, as it is, show Scouter V some love. I love this dude. Reacted for a long time to him. Also talk to him from time to time. He's just... by the way, always at work with his stuff, so I have to respect him for the grind and because he has a good head on his shoulders. I hope that he sees a way bigger growth than he does right now, because honestly, in my opinion, he deserves it. As it is, acolytes, good night.